There's a force in this world more powerful than strategy, more powerful than hustle, more powerful than opportunity, education, or connections. And that force is identity. 3 words. That's all it takes to begin the greatest transformation of your life. Not 10, not 20, just 3. But they must be spoken with fire, with conviction, with unshakable belief. I am wealth. That is the law. That is the blueprint. That is the key. The world doesn't hand over abundance to those who merely wish for it. It responds to those who embody it. And if you do not embody wealth, if you do not think it, speak it, believe it, and radiate it, you will spend your life chasing it, only to see it slip through your fingers like smoke. Wealth is not something you hunt down like prey. It is not something you grab from the outside and stuff into your pockets. It is something that is drawn to you, magnetized by the frequency you live in, the vibration you emit, the beliefs you repeat silently when no one is watching. Before you ever receive a dollar, before a single cent touches your hand, it must first exist in your mind. And if your mind is full of fear, of struggle, of limitation, then so too will be your life. Your reality is not lying to you. Your bank account, your environment, your opportunities, they are all mirrors, not of your potential, but of your expectation. That's the secret nobody told you. Not your school, not your parents, not society. You were taught how to make money, but never how to attract it. You were told to work hard, but never how to think in alignment with abundance. And that's why so many work themselves into the ground and still stay broke. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're unworthy. It's because their inner conversation contradicts every single action they take. You can't write goals about success and speak thoughts of lack. You can't pray for abundance and dwell in fear. You can't say, I want to be rich, and then say money is hard to get in the next breath, because the subconscious mind doesn't follow your words. It follows your dominant vibration. And the universe, it listens to vibration, not vocabulary. It doesn't give you what you say you want. It gives you what you consistently expect. So the question is not, how do I get rich? The real question is, who do I need to become so that wealth has no choice but to follow me? And the answer begins right here. You stop asking, you stop waiting, you stop wishing, and you declare, I am wealth. Not because your bank account says so, but because your identity says so. Because wealth is not a number, it's a standard, a rhythm, a way of thinking, breathing, moving, speaking, deciding. It's not about what's in your wallet, it's about what's in your mind. You can live in a small apartment with overdue bills and still be wealthier than the millionaire who wakes up anxious, addicted to validation, and terrified of losing it all. Because wealth isn't just what you have, it's what you radiate. And if you radiate doubt, the world will give you reasons to doubt. If you radiate power, the world will bend. This is not about arrogance. This is not about faking it. This is about aligning with who you were meant to be before the world convinced you to settle. You were never meant to beg for scraps. You were not born to struggle endlessly just to pay bills and die tired. You were born with the power to create, to shape, to build, to call things into your life with the force of belief so strong that mountains move. And that force begins with language. When you speak, I am wealth, you are not just forming a sentence. You are forming an identity. You are sending instructions to every cell in your body, to every opportunity in the ether, to every part of the universe that is listening and waiting for your lead. Because wealth doesn't follow the desperate. It follows the decided. Decide now. Who are you going to be from this day forward? Will you keep speaking like someone waiting for a miracle, or will you become the miracle? Will you keep walking like someone hoping for permission, or will you rise like someone who knows they are the source? Because once you decide, once you become wealth in your energy, in your thoughts, in your words, in your silence, the world has no choice but to match your frequency. This is not about speaking once. This is about repetition with emotion, with discipline, with fire. It's about saying it when it feels fake, saying it when fear whispers lies. I am wealth. Say it again, not like a whisper, like a declaration, like a king, like a queen, like a creator. Because you are not here to struggle. You are not here to survive. You are here to live in alignment with the laws of abundance. And those laws respond to one thing and one thing only, who you are. So decide who you are. Speak it into the silence. Breathe it into the darkness. Let it echo until your entire nervous system starts to believe. And once it does, your actions will follow. Once your identity shifts, everything else bends to that shift. Your habits realign, your standards rise, your boundaries tighten, your tolerance for mediocrity dissolves. You begin to walk differently, talk differently, breathe differently, not because you're pretending, but because you've remembered who you are. The world doesn't reward need. It rewards clarity. It rewards energy. It rewards the one who walks into the room not hoping to be chosen, but already chosen by their own self-concept. And the most dangerous person in any room is not the loudest. It's the one who knows they are wealth long before the money arrives. When you anchor your identity in lack, every decision becomes a defense. You spend your life reacting, shrinking, hesitating. But when you anchor your identity in abundance, every decision becomes a statement of power. You invest differently. You speak differently. You show up not from fear, but from overflow. This is not about appearances. This is about energy. You can wear rags and radiate royalty, or wear gold and still feel poor, because wealth is not decoration. It's a declaration, and that declaration must be repeated until it overrides every lie you inherited, because that's the truth. Most people don't choose their beliefs. They adopt them, from parents who struggled, from teachers who feared, from cultures built on survival, not expansion. But you're not here to repeat the pattern. You're here to break it. You're here to rise so high in identity that every old story burns off in the light of your new one. And yes, at first your reality won't match it. You'll look around and see evidence of the past, the debt, the rejection, the tightness, the pressure. But you don't speak to confirm the present. You speak to command the future. You declare not what is, but what will be. I am wealth is not a report, it's a vote, a decision, a commitment to become someone whose mind and soul are unavailable for scarcity. And when you repeat it, not just in words, but in the way you treat yourself, in the way you carry yourself, in the standards you hold, the universe takes note. You become a tuning fork for abundance. You stop chasing, because the energy you walk in starts attracting. The rooms you used to beg to be in now beg for your presence. The opportunities you once feared losing now chase your frequency. This is the quiet power of identity. The world reflects who you've decided you are. So stop deciding from fear. Stop building from wounds. Stop waiting to be saved. Become the one who walks like wealth, who thinks like wealth, who expects wealth, because that expectation is the seed of all manifestation. And expectation is not hope. It is not maybe. It is not we'll see. It is a knowing, a posture, a presence. You don't have to scream to prove your worth. You just have to stop apologizing for it. Stop explaining your vision to people too small to hold it. Stop dimming your light to fit into places you've outgrown. Stop watering down your power so others don't feel insecure. Wealth doesn't adjust. Wealth doesn't shrink. Wealth expands. So must you. And as you expand, resistance will come. Your old mind will scream. It will say, "Who do you think you are?" It will say, "That's not realistic." It will try to pull you back into the cage of the familiar. But that's when you rise louder. That's when you speak the words with more fire, more certainty, more soul. I am wealth, not because of what I have, because of who I am becoming, because of what I believe, when everything around me tries to make me forget. And let me tell you something sacred. You will never rise higher than the story you tell yourself in silence. The private narrative you carry is the most powerful force shaping your reality. If that story is soaked in doubt, in fear, in shame, your outer world will reflect exactly that. But if that story begins to change, if you start speaking to yourself like a person who is powerful, worthy, capable, and divine, your life will catch up to that belief. This is why the words must become a ritual, not a moment of hype, not a phrase tossed around for comfort. A ritual, a sacred, non-negotiable, identity-building repetition that forges a new self in the fire of discipline. Say it in the morning when the world feels heavy. Say it at night when your doubts are loud. Say it until it becomes the dominant frequency in your nervous system, the one that silences every old voice and every limiting belief. And don't just say it, feel it. Emotion is the amplifier. It's what turns language into reality. You could repeat "I am wealth" 1,000 times with no emotion and nothing would change. But say it once, with conviction, with depth, with full body belief, and something shifts. You feel your spine straighten, your chest rise, your soul wake up, because you're not just talking, you're remembering. You're remembering that you are the builder, the architect, the creator. You're remembering that nothing outside of you has more power than what you decide within. You're remembering that the moment you own a new identity, the world has no choice but to match it. Every time you affirm your new identity, you chip away at the old one. The version of you that waited, begged, hesitated, it begins to die, and in its place rises someone unshakable, someone who does not ask for permission to be powerful, someone who walks in authority, who does not second-guess their worth, who no longer identifies with the struggle they were born into, but with the wealth they were born for. And that transformation is not reserved for the lucky. It is not granted by bloodline, birthright, or background. It is granted by decision. Decide to stop being a prisoner of your past and become a steward of your future. Decide to stop carrying the chains of unworthiness that were never yours to wear. Decide to speak differently, to move differently, to believe differently, even when nothing around you justifies it. That's the paradox. You must believe in what you cannot yet see. You must act in accordance with a future reality that has not yet arrived, because it's not about what's in front of you, it's about what's within you. You are not the reflection of your bank account. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are not the product of your environment. You are the seed of possibility. And if you dare to plant it, water it, protect it, it will grow into a life that no one saw coming. But the planting must begin in thought, and the watering must be done through repetition. Every affirmation is a drop of truth in the soil of your subconscious. I am wealth is not just a mantra. It is the blueprint of your becoming. Because if you say it enough and feel it deeply and walk in it daily, it will override every line of code that was installed in you by fear, by lack, by those who never saw what you were meant to become. You must understand, your subconscious mind does not care what's real. It cares what's repeated. If you repeat doubt, it will create more of it. If you repeat scarcity, it will engineer your life to match. But if you repeat wealth, with emotion, with consistency, with discipline, it will go to work building that reality without resistance. You are not waiting on money. Money is waiting on you, waiting on your alignment, waiting on your decision, waiting on your vibration to match the level of life you claim to desire. And if you are not there yet, you are not broken. You are becoming. This journey is not about pretending you're something you're not. It's about remembering what you were before the world taught you otherwise, before fear was introduced, before shame was internalized, before you were told that your dreams were too big, your voice too loud, your light too bright. You were wealth before they convinced you to settle for survival. And it's time you return to that knowing. It's time you speak as wealth, not just for yourself, but for every version of you that never had the chance. For the child who saw the world with wide eyes and wild dreams. For the teenager who began to shrink to fit in. For the adult who learned to smile while silently drowning in not enough. Speak it now. For them. For you, for everything you're meant to unlock. I am wealth. Say it with reverence, with certainty, with the fire of someone who has finally stopped apologizing for their potential. Because you can't apologize your way into abundance. You must command it, not from arrogance, but from alignment. And when you're aligned, when your inner world vibrates with the frequency of truth, then and only then do your actions carry power. Because action without belief is a grind. But action with belief, that's where flow begins. That's when time bends. That's when miracles become normal. You don't need to force open doors. You need to become the person who unlocks them by their very presence. Because when your identity rises, your reality must rise with it. That's not hype. That's law. And yes, the world will test you. It will send distractions, setbacks, moments that seem to contradict your belief. But that is not evidence that it's not working. It's evidence that it's beginning, because every new identity must be tested, not to break you, but to prove to you that you were never fragile to begin with. You will face doubt. You will face resistance. But you do not face it as the old you. You face it as wealth. And wealth does not flinch. Wealth does not collapse. Wealth does not explain itself to small minds or shrink for temporary storms. Wealth expands. It adapts. It holds the frequency even when the world tries to knock it off center. And so must you. Hold the line when your bank balance says otherwise. Hold the line when people around you don't understand. Hold the line when fear shows up dressed as logic. Speak the words not for comfort, but for creation. I am wealth. And speak them until your nervous system accepts that as normal, until your thoughts organize around that truth, until your actions become automatic extensions of your identity. Because once the identity is set, the behavior follows. You will no longer need to force discipline. It will become your default. You will no longer battle with procrastination because your vision will be too loud to ignore. This is the power of identity. It removes the need to convince yourself. Once it's who you are, you don't have to try. You simply express. And wealth is not something you perform. It is something you embody. It is the quiet confidence, the grounded certainty, the unshakable belief that everything you touch can grow because you grow. That is who you are becoming. That is what the world needs to see. And it all begins with one decision, spoken until it becomes a new reality. Say it again. I am wealth. The moment those words become your truth, the world begins to rearrange itself. Not all at once, not with fireworks, but piece by piece, in conversations, in coincidences, in the tiny shifts that no one else notices but you feel in your bones. You walk into a room and the energy bends. You speak and people listen. You move and doors open that were never there before. That's not luck. That's resonance. Because now your frequency is no longer apologizing for your future. It's claiming it. You no longer approach life from the outside in. You're not reacting to circumstances. You're dictating them. Your inner state becomes the architect. Your mindset becomes the compass. Your belief becomes the magnet. And this is the great shift most never make. They chase without becoming. They ask without aligning. They hope, but they don't expect. And the universe, neutral and exact, mirrors that gap. But not you. Not anymore. You've stopped playing small. You've stopped asking life for permission to become who you already are. You've stopped negotiating with mediocrity because now your identity has outgrown it. You don't walk like someone trying to succeed. You walk like someone who already has. You don't speak from the need to prove. You speak from a place that already knows. That is wealth. That is power. That is alignment. And when those three become one, belief, identity, and emotion, your thoughts stop fighting you. Your past stops defining you. Your actions become effortless because they are no longer acts of discipline, they are expressions of truth. You don't chase wealth, you express it, in every choice, in every moment. You dress like wealth, not for appearance, but for resonance. You speak like wealth, not to impress, but to align. You walk like wealth, not for attention, but because your energy refuses to shrink. And yes, there will still be days when the old voice returns, when fear creeps in, when the evidence tries to contradict your belief, but now you know what to do. You return to the words, I am wealth. You speak them until the fear melts, until the body remembers, until the room responds, because these words are not decoration, they are direction, they are not comfort, they are command. You are no longer asking, you are anchoring, and the more you speak from that place, the more your subconscious aligns with that identity, the faster your external world begins to rise. Your standards become non-negotiable, your vision becomes crystal clear, your energy becomes magnetic. People will ask what changed, and you'll know it was nothing outside, it was everything within. The way you spoke to yourself, the way you saw yourself, the way you corrected your thoughts before they could drift into doubt, the way you decided every single day to speak with authority over your life instead of letting life speak over you. That is mastery. Because mastery is not about never struggling, it's about knowing who you are, even when everything says you're not. You can be surrounded by chaos, but your identity stays clean. You can be in transition, but your inner vision doesn't blink. You can have a rough day, but your soul still knows you are wealth. Because it's no longer a sentence, it's your signature. You no longer allow small thoughts to live in your mind rent-free. You no longer give energy to limitations that don't belong to you. You no longer entertain conversations, relationships, or environments that reflect the version of you you've already outgrown. Because you know now, life only rises when you rise. Results only change when identity changes. And the world, no matter how slow, will always catch up to who you believe you are. So speak like it, breathe like it, decide like it. I am wealth. Say it not for motivation. Say it because you refuse to carry any other frequency through this world. You've spent enough time wondering, enough time wishing, enough time bargaining with your worth. Now it's time to lead, to walk into the world like a force, to stop looking for signs and become the sign, to stop waiting for the green light and realize the green light was always in your voice. You don't need more credentials. You don't need more validation. You don't need another someday. What you need is to finally agree with the power that's been whispering inside you this entire time. You've seen glimpses. You've felt the pull. You've imagined more. Now it's time to become it. To collapse the distance between who you've been and who you're meant to be. To no longer leave your power on the table. To no longer sacrifice your vision for comfort. There is no comfort in self-denial. There is no peace in playing small. There is no security in pretending you're not powerful just to fit into rooms that were never built for your expansion. So raise your voice, plant your feet, and speak what you were born to remember. I am wealth. Say it until doubt disappears. Say it until action becomes natural. Say it until your reality has no choice but to reflect it. You are not asking anymore. You are arriving. There's a point in every transformation where the shift becomes irreversible. Not because everything outside has changed, but because you have. You've crossed the line. The threshold where the old identity no longer fits, no longer speaks for you, no longer has power over your decisions. And it happens in silence, not with fanfare, but in quiet moments when you hear the same lie you've always heard. You're not enough. This isn't for people like you. Who do you think you are? And for the first time, instead of shrinking, you smile. You smile because you've heard those voices before, but now they sound different, weaker, older, worn out. They don't shake you like they used to. They don't dictate your pace, because now there's a louder voice in the room, one that says, I am wealth. And it doesn't just sound different, it feels different. It lives in your chest, in your breath, in the way you hold your head, in the way you say no to what you used to tolerate. That voice, your new voice, has become louder than fear, more consistent than doubt, more powerful than the weight of your past, because repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm becomes reality. What you once said to feel better, you now say because it is. You're not rehearsing anymore. You're remembering. You're remembering that wealth is not a thing you chase. It's a state you claim, a frequency you live in, a tone you carry, even when the world offers static. You don't need applause. You don't need proof. You don't need to convince anyone, because when you are aligned, you walk into a room, and your silence speaks louder than their noise. Your presence shifts the space without a word. And here's the truth they don't tell you, that wealth, real wealth, isn't loud. It's not flashy. It doesn't need to be explained or justified. It's quiet, grounded, unapologetically whole. And when you live from that place, that deep, unshakable alignment with who you are and what you expect, the universe stops testing and starts responding. Things that used to take years happen in weeks. People who used to doubt you start asking how you did it. Circumstances that once seemed immovable begin to bow, because the world can't resist someone who no longer doubts themselves. And no, this doesn't mean life becomes perfect. There will still be storms, but now you are the calm. Now you are the force. You used to pray for breakthroughs. Now you are the breakthrough. You used to wait for signs. Now you are the signal. You used to try to be worthy. Now you understand. Worthiness was never up for debate. And all of this began with one choice: to stop borrowing your identity from your past, and to start building it from your vision. You stopped living in reaction, and you began living in intention. You stopped speaking as the person you've been, and started declaring the person you're becoming. You stopped chasing, and started attracting, because now you're not working against yourself. You're not building from fear. You're not carrying the old voice into new seasons. You're building from truth, and truth doesn't need effort. It needs alignment. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your decisions all speak the same language, the language of abundance, the language of power, the language of I am wealth, then success becomes a side effect, not a goal. The things you used to strive for become normal. The opportunities you used to dream of become obvious, because you've raised your standard and the universe never delivers below your standard. And this is what makes you dangerous now. You no longer settle. You no longer lower your vibration to match the room. You become the room. You set the tone. You walk like a person who remembers that their energy is currency, that every thought is an investment, that every word is an instruction, that every belief is a builder. And your new beliefs, they don't leave room for lack. They don't allow poverty to masquerade as humility. They don't let fear disguise itself as caution. They speak life. They command results. They attract miracles. You've become someone who doesn't chase things. You choose them. Someone who doesn't look for open doors. You build them. Someone who doesn't fear rejection, because rejection can't touch what's already ordained. And all of this power, it started with a choice, a phrase, a frequency. I am wealth. Say it again, louder, not to get there, but to anchor it. To declare that this is no longer something you're moving toward. It's who you are now. Every cell in your body deserves to hear it. Every version of you that was ever unsure deserves to feel it. Every goal you've held back on, it's time to release it with certainty, with fire, with full alignment, because wealth doesn't come when you're ready. It comes when you've decided you already are, and now you walk with it, not beside it, not behind it, as it. You wake up in wealth. You breathe it in. You let it govern your posture, your schedule, your conversations. You let it shape the way you enter rooms, the way you handle conflict, the way you invest in yourself, because every move you make is now aligned with who you believe you are. You are no longer negotiating with fear, no longer asking for permission, no longer postponing your power until the conditions feel right. You've realized the right condition is you, and when you change, everything around you begins to adjust, not because you manipulated outcomes, but because you mastered origin. The origin was never in the market, never in the economy, never in a mentor, a strategy, or a shortcut. It was always in the mirror, in the beliefs behind your eyes, in the story behind your breath. And the story has changed. You no longer speak from history. You speak from vision. You no longer echo fear. You resonate certainty. And now, wealth, true wealth, is no longer a fantasy on the horizon. It is the ground you walk on, the lens you see through, the identity you return to when the winds blow, the doubts rise and the world forgets who you are. You remember. You remember because you decided to. You remember because you wrote a new law into your life. Not in ink, not on paper, but in frequency, in tone, in voice, in command. And the law is simple. The law is precise. The law is not up for debate. I am wealth. These 3 words are your foundation now, not just in your best moments, especially in your darkest ones, especially when you feel shaken, when the old beliefs try to claw their way back, when the world around you loses its clarity. You don't need the world to be certain when you are. You don't need circumstances to validate what you already decided in silence. You are not wealth because of what you've gained. You are wealth because of what you've become, because you've trained your mind to rise, because you've led your emotions with intention, because you've built a new identity, brick by brick, word by word, choice by choice, until nothing remains of the old but the memory of how far you've come. So now, the work is not to start. The work is to sustain, to keep speaking the truth even when fear knocks louder, to keep expecting abundance even when logic disagrees, to keep showing up like someone who knows that the law is always in motion and it does not return void. This isn't motivation anymore. This is momentum. This is what happens when discipline meets faith, when identity meets repetition, when belief meets emotional certainty. Your voice now carries a frequency that creates. Your energy now bends reality. Your mind now generates what others only wish for, because you've stopped trying to become. You've become. You no longer say, I am wealth, to convince yourself. You say it because you've seen what happens when you don't. You've lived that life, the life of shrinking, of silence, of second-guessing, and now you've chosen the other path, the one that requires no permission, the one that welcomes no contradiction, the one that rewrites legacy, and now you walk with the energy of someone who knows this truth. No one can take from you what was born within you. No downturn, no betrayal, no delay, no doubt. You are no longer fragile because your identity is forged, your vibration is stable, your future is non-negotiable, and your words, these words are now laws you live by. So speak them, in the quiet, in the chaos, in the waiting, in the winning. Speak them until the world reflects what you already know to be true. Say them not as a habit, but as a home you return to, a fire you draw strength from, a promise you've already seen fulfilled. I am wealth. Not someday, not when it's proven. Now, because you no longer need evidence. You are the evidence, the walking, breathing, living expression of alignment. And from this day forward, you will not let anyone, not even your past self, talk you out of what you were born to live. Abundance is not a wish, it is your way. Prosperity is not a pursuit, it is your pace. Power is not something you perform, it is something you remember. And from now on, let the world hear it. Let the walls feel it. Let every limitation collapse beneath it. I am wealth.